Welcome to Art Scene. I'm Tom Erb, your host. Art Scene is brought to you by the Arts and Culture Alliance of Newport County. ACA was founded in 1992, and its main purpose is to inform and help people know what's going on in Newport County with the arts. It also provides networking opportunities for those involved with the arts and seeking to be involved with the arts. If you want to learn more about membership to the ACA, please go to our website at newportarts.org. I'm very excited because our first show, we're going to be talking about the arts that are going down on in Kings Park. It's called ViewPort. Okay, our very first guest for our very first show is Chris Wiley, a local artist, and Kate Dana, another local artist, to tell us more about all that great art you're seeing down on Kings Park. We're here today to talk to the founders. Are you guys the founders?
No.
No, you're not the founders?
No.
You're like, what are you guys? What are you doing? This is actually Kate Dana and Chris Wiley, okay? And both of these guys are involved with ViewPort, okay, which is down at Kings Park?
King Park, yeah.
Okay, so Dana, you know the history of ViewPort. Why don't you tell me about ViewPort?
ViewPort is a project that was conceptualized about midwinter last year. We thought a friend of mine, Rebecca Harding, who had done theater in the past and was familiar with things that had happened in Newport in the past as well, had this idea of putting together a public art piece. And we talked about it a little bit, and she told me about a project called Wind, Sea, Sky, produced by Project One, that ran from 1996 until 2004. And it was a sculptural installation on the beach at Easton's Beach. And they also did some banner projects, but really the sculptural installation project was the one that was interesting to us and something that we thought it was about time we resurrected the spirit of that project. So we talked about it a little bit and decided that we would try and pull it off for fall 2010, which, last winter seemed like a long way off, but the year was it snuck up pretty fast. But we did it, and it worked out, and now it's up and running at this moment. You can go see it.
That's right, it's at Kings Park. And I personally happened to go down to Kings Park last Wednesday with my grandchildren, and there was art. It was color. There was an expression in the air, if you would say. And so, Chris, do you have a piece down there?
I do. My piece is called When We're Little, and it's a box with eye holes into it, so you view through it, and there's small images inside. So it's kind of like a world within a world. Yeah.
Wow. Well, as I was telling you earlier, I saw the big, huge structure out of bamboo and string, and it had like all this string that came to the middle, and there was these rocks in the middle of it. It was named what was it called again? Moonlight Catcher. That's exactly Moonlight Receiver. Okay, so I was fascinated by this thing. I couldn't figure out what its purpose was. Okay. And then when I realized after I left, its purpose was me to try to figure out what its purpose was. It was art. Yeah. I was supposed to try and interpret it, because that's what I do. I'm an interpreter.
That's by Russell Daly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that name sounds familiar. Is he a local guy?
He's a local guy. He's a metalsmith. He has a shop over on Warner Street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Mercury did a great article on him about a month or two ago.
Yeah.
About he has a great collection of cars that are these just kind of California hot rods that are that he's just kind of changed.
He built them all himself,
Yeah.
and one of them he's had since he was in high school. So it's at this point he's in his mid-60s, and that car has been around with him a long, long time.
Wow.
It's moved all over the place with him. So
I also noticed there was some art that had like CDs on it. Yeah, and I don't. And so it was
lots of materials.
Lots of materials on it.
Yeah.
But the one that really was interesting was the jellyfish. It was hanging on like a hook over the water, and you could tell it was a jellyfish.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. There was no doubt that was a
Yeah.
jellyfish.
That's Rebecca Harding's. That's the
Yeah.
girl that planned it with her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I happen to have been around a little bit while Project One was in effect. Okay, and it was a great project. Okay, and like all other projects, okay, it was the idea, and its energy was focused around a few people. Okay, and those few people either kind of dispersed or got burnt out, like any other thing.
A lot of things happened. Graduate school,
Absolutely.
children moving to other places, and also the 2004, which was the last year that they did a project, the Wind Sea Sky project, it was huge. The scale of it was so large, and it was spectacular. But I think that they lost energy, and combined with the fact that people had other things to do in their lives the next year. And I think everybody probably thought that maybe they would skip a year or something, and that it would resurrect, would come back, and
Right.
it just didn't happen until
Well,
now.
I think that's kind of I think that's kind of the way large arts projects sort of happen. Okay, I think they begin with an idea, and then that idea sort of gets implemented. And as the idea begins to grow, okay, people get more involved and more involved. But I think there is a point of no return where you get to that ending point. And maybe in 2004, everybody knew that this was this last push. Okay, that was and it was a big one. Okay, I wasn't here for it, but I heard it was huge.
Yeah,
okay, and I heard it was a great thing. Okay, and the unfortunate part, the climate here in Newport is not the same as it used to be back in 2004, where a big project like that on the beach, okay, is probably not something that they would allow to happen, believe it or not.
You think so? Because we were really impressed when Rebecca and I approached the city about doing something like this again. That it was really, really encouraging how supportive they were in terms of, when we specifically asked if we could use Kings Park, but I think if we'd asked about Easton's Beach, that the Parks Department, Sue Cooper, who's there, is very, very supportive of the idea of bringing art into public spaces and into the parks of Newport. And the council members, when we went to the council meeting, got on the docket to ask for approval, they were all they asked tough questions that, a responsible council person would about who's taking care of things, how it's going to run, how many pieces there were going to be, things like that, just so that they could understand what they were approving. But they were very supportive of it, and I just feel like
also the community was people walking by, they were coming up to all of us saying how glad that they had brought it back, that they had missed it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is that when everyone not everyone abandoned it, but when it just kind of went away, that I think a lot of people missed it. And in fact, I moved here the first year, or rather the last year that it was being done. I moved here the week that it was being put up, and I regretted not getting here earlier in a sense, because I would have loved to have been part of it. And then, subsequently all these years, I kind of missed it. And when I heard that they were doing it this year, I jumped on it and wanted to be part of it, and was happy to do so.
And the only reason that I brought that up is because for myself, there's some, I think arts in public places is a great idea. When I was younger, back in the early 70s, there was lots of arts in public places. As a matter of fact, Trinity Repertory used to come down and do Shakespeare at Toro Park. And they would come down and build these huge sets that they would have to be inspected by building inspectors. They were just enormous, okay? And they would bring these big Shakespearean companies, and people could, and they were free. You could go in and sit in these parks and watch Shakespeare, and the lighting at night. It was amazing.
Let's bring it back.
I believe me, I'd love to bring it back. Okay, I would totally love to bring it back. That was in the days when there was a gentleman around town named John Chatty, and John Chatty was the arts guy. Okay, he was the kind of guy that would back in the days when you didn't have cell phones and you didn't have Facebook and you didn't have all these ways of communicating. He would come up with an idea to do an Irish piece at 40 steps. Okay, and somehow, some way, he would get these. He would take the flyers and he'd go around and staple them all up on all the telephone poles in town. Okay, and then when you get there that night, there'd be 100 people there, all right, to watch him do this Irish piece at 40 steps. Okay, and he had a lot of energy to do those kinds of things. And although I think that the climate's a little different.
What is an Irish piece at 40 steps? You fall
40
down.
steps happens to be 40 steps
I know
happens.
what 40 steps is. I just don't
But he did it was an Irish play. He did an Irish play. Okay, and it was a one-man Irish piece. Okay, and 40 steps, and he'd stand there and he'd do this thing, and you'd think you were in Ireland because you were sitting on the water, on the cliffs, and it was and you just find a seat wherever you could. And back in those days, 40 steps wasn't all built up nice and concrete. It was like wooden steps, and there was cliffs and all this other kind of thing. So arts in public spaces, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I know that you're all for that, Chris.
Absolutely, and the reception that we got on the day we opened, September 1st, it was a beautiful day, and then Mike Walsh came out and played music, and he did such a great job, and he has this, I don't know, I love his performance, you know, because he plays songs, but then he just starts talking over the songs, and I think it's hysterical, and he's great.
It has such a local. I mean, a lot of his songs have a real local focus that are absolutely charming, and it has a really. I mean, his music is good, but it also has broad appeal. So we couldn't have asked for a better performer to have that day. I don't think.
Absolutely. And then, in fact, and so many people have ideas that they want to be part of it next year.
Yeah.
You know? And in fact, even Dr. Love has this great thing that he wants to do with the pyramid out there, and do kind of like an all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, and do something with that. And then just, you know, the other day I ran into him at in a cafe, and he said, and he was talking about doing, 'cause since we don't have the America's Cup, he wants to bring back the America's Cup cake, and he wants to have like different races and events surrounded by these cupcakes, you know what I mean? And so, and I think it's perfect, because it's, you know, it's why not? You know, exactly. You know, and
I think that's an awesome idea.
Right.
You know, that's just like imagination gone perfect, as far as I'm concerned.
I think so too. And like, the ego of the town has been so wounded since we've lost it, or whoever lost it, whatever it is. You know, but it's I think that we should do something like that. You know, and I think thumbing your nose at it with a small piece of cake is even better. You know, so. But anyway, I'm not a sailor.
Well,
sailors probably,
it's
flipping over.
interesting. I always look at that era, okay? Because I was here when we lost it. Yeah. I wasn't only just here. I was actually down on Thames Street when the Australians came into Christie's, okay, and you couldn't move, okay. Right. It was, and I was a huge America's Cup fan at the time. So the climate on that day was not the best. Oh, sure. But what I can say is that a part of the issue of that time is that we created our own issues. There was so much secrecy going on at that time, because the Australians had come in with this new kind of boat, and they had put wings on their keel. Well, believe it or not, you know, they had people from America who were actually diving in their particular space, trying to find out what these wings look like, okay? Well, and the truth of the matter is they should have just concentrated on sailing. Right. You know, there was the hoopla was all about how